All right, so picture this. You've poured your heart and soul into this killer ad campaign. Your audience, like the back of your hand, you've got the creative totally nailed down. But
Hmm.
how do you actually know if you're getting the most bang for your buck when it comes to like actually getting those ads out there, producing the materials, working with agencies, all that
Yeah, that's
jazz?
a really good point.
That's where advertising procurement comes in.
Right.
And I know it might not sound as exciting as, brainstorming the perfect jingle,
Sure.
but trust me, this is where you can become like a true marketing money ninja.
I like that. I like where you're going with this.
That's
We're
right.
talking about making sure every dollar you spend on advertising is actually working hard for you, not just disappearing into the void.
Yeah, exactly. And today we're diving deep into measuring success in advertising procurement from procure for marketing to uncover those secrets.
Good stuff.
We'll learn how to track the right metrics, not just cost, but quality, efficiency, and the real impact of your campaign.
And we'll bust some myths along the way. Procurement isn't just about slashing cost. It's about maximizing the value of every single dollar you invest in advertising.
Love it. So the source really hammers home the importance of setting clear objectives before you even think about spending a dime.
Right.
Why is that such a crucial first step?
Well, think about it this way. Imagine launching a new product without a clear target audience in mind.
Okay.
You might end up with a fantastic product that nobody wants.
Yeah, nobody wants it.
Objectives are your compass in advertising procurement.
Right.
They tell you where you're going and help you stay on course.
Okay, so it's not enough to just say, I want my campaign to be successful. What does a truly solid objective look like in the world of advertising?
A great objective is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
All the good stuff.
For example, let's say you're launching a new line of sneakers aimed at Gen Z.
Okay, I like it.
A solid objective might be increase brand awareness by 15% among Gen Z consumers in major metropolitan areas within the next 6 months.
Okay.
You can measure awareness through surveys, track your progress over time, and see if you're hitting your target.
That's a much clearer picture than just saying, I want people to know about my sneakers, right?
Exactly.
So once you've got those objectives locked in, the source dives into all these different metrics. Let's start with the financial ones.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, you've got to keep an eye on the bottom line.
Absolutely. And while cost savings are certainly important, the source goes beyond just looking at how much you shaved off the initial price tag.
Right.
It emphasizes something called return on investment, or ROI.
ROI, I get the concept, but how do you actually measure that in a concrete way, especially with something like an ad campaign, where the results aren't always immediately obvious?
You need to look at the bigger picture. A classic example is the Got Milk campaign.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't about immediate sales. It was about creating a long-term association between milk and a healthy lifestyle.
Okay.
They measured success by tracking things like milk consumption trends and shifts in public perception over time.
Interesting.
And let me tell you, their ROI was through the roof.
Wow, that's a great example. So it's about looking beyond just immediate sales figures and considering the long-term impact on your brand and market position.
Exactly.
The source also mentions budget adherence, which seems pretty straightforward, but what are some common budgeting pitfalls people fall into? And how can they avoid those money traps?
One of the biggest mistakes is underestimating hidden costs.
Oh, yeah, those sneaky costs.
You might get a great deal on ad space, but then get slammed with unexpected production fees or agency charges.
Ouch.
Having a detailed breakdown of all potential costs up front and building in some contingency for the unexpected is crucial.
That makes a lot of sense. Forecasting those hidden costs can save you a major headache down the road.
Absolutely.
So we've got cost savings, ROI, and staying on budget, but the source reminds us that it's not all about pinching pennies, right? There's this whole other dimension to measuring success.
You got it. It's not just about the money you planned. It's about what you get for that money.
Yeah.
And that's where quality comes in.
Quality now that feels a lot more subjective than crunching numbers. What are some of the key quality metrics that really matter in ad procurement?
Two biggies stand out: the quality of the materials themselves and customer feedback.
Okay.
Imagine you're running a print campaign, and the paper quality is flimsy, the colors are off, and the text is blurry.
Eek, not good.
Even if you snagged a killer deal on printing costs, those low-quality materials will reflect poorly on your brand
Yeah.
and ultimately hurt your campaign.
Ouch, yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. But how do you define quality in a way that everyone agrees on? It seems so open to interpretation.
The key is setting clear standards from the outset. If you're working with an agency to produce a video, you need to specify things like resolution, frame rate, and audio quality.
Okay.
For printed materials, you'll want to define paperweight, color palettes, and printing techniques.
Makes sense.
Having those specifications clearly outlined in your contracts helps ensure everyone is on the same page.
So it's like having a blueprint for quality, making sure everyone involved knows exactly what's expected. Now, another big chunk of the source focuses on supplier performance. Why is that such a make-or-break element in advertising procurement?
You can have the most brilliant campaign in the world, but if your suppliers are dropping the ball, it can all fall apart.
Yeah, true.
I once worked with a company that had a fantastic concept for a pop-up shop to promote a new product, but their supplier completely messed up the signage, delivering misspelled banners and poorly constructed displays.
Oh,
It
no.
was a PR nightmare.
Oh, that sounds like a total disaster. So what are some red flags to watch out for when it comes to supplier performance, and how can you protect yourself from those kinds of mishaps?
Well, the source digs into some really specific metrics here, and on-time delivery is huge. Are your suppliers consistently meeting deadlines?
Yeah, makes sense.
You also want to look at their track record of compliance with specifications. Are they delivering exactly what you ordered, both in terms of quality and design?
So it's not enough to just get there on time. It has to be the right stuff, too. Makes sense. What else should we be watching for?
Responsiveness, how quickly and effectively do they address issues or questions that come up?
Okay.
I've seen campaigns get delayed by weeks because a supplier was slow to respond to a simple design change. It's like pulling teeth.
Ugh, that's so frustrating. Communication is key in any relationship, but especially when you've got tight deadlines and a lot riding on the outcome. So you mentioned metrics a minute ago. What are some of the ones that actually help us measure this stuff?
The source highlights a really interesting one, procurement cycle time. This measures how long it takes to go from requesting something to actually getting it delivered.
Okay.
A streamlined process could be the difference between a successful launch and a missed opportunity.
I can see how that would be a major factor, especially in fast-paced industries where timing is everything. Is there a magic number for what a good cycle time looks like?
It really depends on the industry and the complexity of the project. But generally speaking, shorter is better. The source also talks about overall process efficiency. Are there any unnecessary steps or approvals that are slowing things down?
That's a great point. I've definitely been in situations where a project got bogged down in bureaucratic red tape. How can we make sure the process itself is as streamlined as possible?
The source really emphasizes leveraging technology. Things like e-procurement systems can automate a lot of the manual tasks like purchase orders and invoice processing.
So we're talking about taking those old school paper-based processes and bringing them into the digital age.
Exactly. Now, don't forget about things like standardized templates and online communication tools. Anything that can reduce back and forth and keep everyone on the same page can make a huge difference.
Streamlining, automating, getting rid of bottlenecks. It's all about maximizing efficiency, right? Okay, so we've covered the financial side of things, the importance of quality, keeping our suppliers on their toes, and making sure our processes are running smoothly. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. Did our campaign actually work? What are the impact metrics that really matter?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it? And the source highlights a couple of key areas to focus on. First, campaign performance. Did it actually achieve the objectives you set out in the beginning?
Right back to those objectives we were talking about earlier. So if your goal was to increase brand awareness, you'd be looking at metrics like what social media mentions or website traffic.
Exactly. Or if your goal was to drive sales, you'd be tracking things like conversion rates and revenue generated. But it goes deeper than that. The source also talks about market penetration.
Okay.
How effectively did your campaign reach the intended audience?
So it's not just about whether people saw the ads, it's about whether those ads actually made a difference in the market. Like, did they help you gain market share or reach new customer segments?
Precisely. You might have a campaign that goes viral and gets tons of views, but if it doesn't translate into tangible business results, what's the point?
Okay, that makes sense. Viral fame is great, but at the end of the day, we're trying to move the needle for our business. So we've covered a ton of ground here. Financial metrics, quality supplier performance, streamlining our processes, and measuring the impact of our campaigns. But the source doesn't stop there. It ends with this really important concept, continuous improvement.
You got it. Even the most successful campaigns can be improved.
Right.
Advertising procurement isn't a one-and-done deal. It's an ongoing process of learning, refining, and adapting.
So how do we actually put that into practice? How do we make sure we're not just resting on our laurels, but constantly striving to get better? The source mentions something called feedback loops. What are those all about?
It's about getting input from everyone involved, both your suppliers and internal stakeholders. Were there any hiccups in the process? What could have been done better? What lessons can you learn for next time?
So it's about creating a culture of open communication and continuous learning.
Exactly. Those insights can be incredibly valuable in identifying blind spots, streamlining processes, and uncovering potential cost savings you might have missed. The source also highlights the importance of benchmarking.
Benchmarking, that sounds a little intimidating. What is that, and how can it help us level up our game?
Think of it like checking in with the competition. How do your procurement processes and metrics stack up against industry standards or similar companies? It can be a real eye-opener.
So you might discover that you're killing it in some areas but lagging behind in others.
That's the idea. It helps you see where you excel and where there's room for growth.
It's all about learning from the best, right? Steal like an artist, but in the world of advertising procurement. Okay, so we're always striving to get better, learning from our experiences and comparing ourselves to others in the industry. But let's be real, procurement can feel like a lot to handle, especially with all these different metrics and factors to consider. Any final pearls of wisdom from the source on how to make it all a bit easier?
Don't underestimate the power of technology. The source really hammers home this point. Leveraging procurement software and analytics tools can be a game changer.
Okay, so we're talking about things like automation, data visualization, and all those fancy dashboards.
Exactly. These tools can take a lot of the heavy lifting off your plate, freeing you up to focus on the strategic side of things. They can help you track metrics, identify trends, and make more data-driven decisions.
So it's like having a digital assistant for your procurement needs.
You could say that they can help you streamline processes, reduce errors, and gain valuable insights that might have otherwise slipped through the cracks.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive. We've talked about setting clear objectives, the importance of both financial and quality metrics, keeping a close eye on supplier performance, streamlining our processes, measuring the impact of our campaigns, and constantly striving for improvement. It's quite a journey.
It really is. And what's interesting is that the source we've been exploring focuses primarily on traditional advertising, procurement, print, TV, radio.
Right, the old school stuff.
But the world of advertising is evolving at lightning speed.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We're seeing this massive shift towards digital marketing and emerging platforms.
Totally.
It's all about social media, influencer marketing, virtual reality experiences, the metaverse. It's a whole new ballgame.
It makes you wonder how these principles we've been discussing, these fundamentals of measuring success, how do they apply in this rapidly changing digital landscape? It's not like you can just measure impressions and call it a day anymore.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you measure brand awareness when you're dealing with things like TikTok trends and Instagram stories? How do you track ROI when a campaign goes viral but doesn't necessarily translate into immediate sales? These are challenges that marketers are grappling with every day.
It's like the Wild West out there, and the old rule book doesn't always apply. But I think the core principles still hold true. You still need clear objectives, you still need to track the right metrics, and you still need to be constantly adapting and refining your approach.
Absolutely, about taking those fundamental principles and applying them to this new, ever-evolving landscape. It's about understanding how to measure engagement, sentiment, and influence in the digital world. It's about tracking things like click-through rates, conversion rates, and customer lifetime value.
So it's not just about throwing money at the latest social media platform and hoping for the best. It's about being strategic data-driven and always thinking about how to maximize the value of every dollar you spend.
Precisely. And that's what makes this deep dive so relevant, even in the face of these rapid changes. The principles we've discussed today provide a solid foundation for navigating the world of advertising, no matter what platforms or technologies emerge in the future. It's all about being adaptable, informed, and constantly refining your approach.
It's like having a mental toolkit that you can use to tackle any advertising challenge that comes your way. And who knows what the future holds? Maybe we'll be diving deep into the intricacies of metaverse marketing or measuring the ROI of holographic billboards.
Now, that would be something. But for now, I think the key takeaway is this: measuring success in advertising procurement isn't just about pinching pennies. It's a strategic, multifaceted approach to making sure your marketing dollars are working as hard as they can.
It's about getting the most bang for your buck, whether you're buying traditional ad space or navigating the complexities of the digital world.
Well said. It's been a pleasure diving deep into this with you today.